In 1974, three children on the streets of Boston, USA, accidentally hit a stickball into the sewer. Obviously, they had something to say. A boy with yellow hair named Jimmy found a newly built cement board. He picked up a branch and wrote his name. It was said that this could be kept forever. Soon, it was the turn of the last boy, David. But before David's name was finished, a man with handcuffs on his waist came over and said that the three of them were casually disrupting official business. At this time, the children realized as a policeman, and they also admitted their mistakes to him separately. The man asked if they lived nearby, and Jimmy and Sheen's home was diagonally opposite. Then he looked at David. Only David's home was not on the street. He asked David, "Get in the car quickly." He said that this matter must be discussed with the parents. The back seat of his car was a mess. When David was still hesitating, the men grabbed him and put him directly into the car. Then he warned the two children outside to go back and meet their parents and reflect on it. David was trembling with fear, and there was actually another person in the car. The two children outside looked at a loss and could only look up at them as they took their companion away. At this point, David's life would be completely changed. The three of them have always been best friends, and their friendship will end here. After returning, Jimmy told his father what just happened. It was obvious that he just wrote his name on the cement board. It was impossible for the police to take the child away directly. They quickly realized the problem, and at this time, David was already locked in the cellar. The people who took him into the car were not the police at all, but two perverts with pedophilia. 4 days later, David escaped from the cellar, came out, and the fear of these for days will accompany him for the rest of his life. After returning home, he locked himself in his room and refused to communicate with anyone. Even Jimmy and Sheen would only look at each other through the window every time they came to see him. It's 25 years. The names originally written are still clearly visible, and the two perverts were punished by law. The experience of those 4 days left an indelible shadow in David's heart. The scene of being taken into a car here as a child is still vivid in his mind. Fortunately, David already has his own son. He and his other two friends now rarely contact each other. The boy with yellow hair back then was named Jimmy. As an adult, Jimmy opened a supermarket and became prosperous. His eldest daughter, Katie, looks like standing tall, and she has always been the apple of Jimmy's eye. In the evening, she was going out to eat with friends. When she was leaving, her daughter's expression was a little strange, but Jimmy didn't think much about it. In the evening, Katie came to the bar with two friends. At that time, David was sitting below. The three girls stood on the bar and had a great time, while David looked at Jimmy's daughter Katie thoughtfully. It was already 3 o'clock in the morning when he got home. His wife was shocked when she saw David's belly injured. There was blood all over his clothes. His wife didn't know what happened. David told him that he had just encountered a robber on the road. His wife asked him to go to the hospital quickly, but strangely, David refused and said that the wounds on his body were not too deep. When he came out of the bar and wanted to drive home, a strange man suddenly took out a dagger and asked for money or his life, letting him choose. Then the two of them fought each other, and the man directly scratched him with the dagger. As he said this, David started to cry. "It may have something to do with my childhood experiences." His body would tremble unconsciously whenever he encountered any stimulation. The police received a report early the next morning. Two children claimed that they found a car near Sydney Street with blood everywhere. The door was open, but there was no one inside. At this time, no one knew that this was Jimmy's daughter Katie's car. Not long after, Jimmy received a call. The clerk in the supermarket was very busy and wanted Katie to come over and help. In fact, Jimmy didn't know that his daughter Katie didn't arrive home last night. Jimmy's wife thought that Katie had spent the night at a friend's house and asked Jimmy to go to the supermarket to deal with it first. But when Jimmy arrived at the supermarket and made several calls, he could not find her daughter's whereabouts. Then two boys walked in. The boy in the back is named Brandon. He is Katie's secret boyfriend. Because Jimmy had a relationship with his father before, his relationship with Katie didn't dare let Jimmy know that. The boy in the hat is mute and is Brandon's biological brother, Zhao. In fact, Brandon came here to find Katie because the two of them agreed in the car yesterday that they would meet in the supermarket today. and they also said that everything was going according to plan. It seemed that the two of them were preparing for something. Watching in the supermarket. No sign of Katie. Jimmy sat next to him and stared at him. Brandon didn't dare to ask, so he took his brother's gilet and left. The scene had already become a mess. The police had already found Katie's ID card in the car. The police officer in charge of handling the case was sitting in the middle. It was also the second boy, Sean, who wrote his name on the cement board that year. When he saw Katie's car, Sean felt bad because Jimmy had been in the underworld for more than 10 years. It was because of his daughter Katie that he changed his ways. Although Katie's whereabouts have not yet been found, if she was really harmed, he couldn't imagine what drastic things Jimmy would do. Today was the day when Jimmy's other two daughters received Holy Communion. Katie's mother was passed away. The current wife next to Jimmy is actually Katie's stepmother. There has been no news about her daughter. At this time, Jimmy felt a little uneasy. The police had launched a blanket search nearby. Jimmy came out of the church and wanted to see what happened here. As a result, he saw Katie's car at a glance. Jimmy couldn't believe it. Immediately afterwards, Sean received a notice that someone outside called his name and wanted to meet him. He still couldn't hide from Jimmy's two younger brothers, already starting to run rampant in the crowd. Jimmy told them to go to his daughter's classmate's house first to find out the situation. Then Sean came over. Now, the relationship between them is just to meet and say hello. They just finished speaking. Sean was notified that something was not going well in a nearby park. After receiving the news, Sean immediately came to the scene. A teenage girl was thrown into an abandoned park. Sean lifted up the girl's hair and saw clearly that she was really Jimmy's daughter. Katie was shot to death, and there were several wounds on her head. At the same time, Jimmy and his younger brother were already there. Rushed to the scene. The surrounding police officers immediately stopped them. At this time, Sean didn't know what to say. David's wife was there. I was packing my clothes. And then the news started to report that a girl named Katie was brutally murdered last night. The police were searching for the murderer all over the city. Her first reaction was whether Katie's death was related to David. Was David related to it last night? He lied? Was it the robber who he accidentally beat to death? Sean took Jimmy to the morgue to confirm the body of his daughter Katie. Sean wanted to know if there was anything unusual about the child recently. Jimmy only remembered that they separated yesterday afternoon. Katie's expression was a little strange, but he didn't think much about it at the time because Jimmy had a criminal record. In order to rule out the possibility of a vendetta, he always recalled what he had committed. Jimmy's daughter Katie was shot to death by the murderer, and she was beaten with a stick before she was killed. She went to a bar with two friends. She had several lists of hotels and other places in her backpack. She didn't know if she was planning to go on a trip. The only information the police had at this time was this. At this time, many relatives and friends came to Jimmy's house. Only David's wife, Celeste, always looked worried. No one knew what she was thinking. David didn't know how to smoke. Now, he also learned to smoke. When he saw Jimmy, David wanted to leave there, but he couldn't. Because they had rarely had the chance to talk in recent years, he wanted to know why David's right hand was injured. David said it was injured at home. David said he bumped into an iron gate when moving the sofa at home. Jimmy's current wife is David's wife Celeste's cousin, so there was a kind of kinship between the two families. Jimmy wanted to have a good chat with him from the bottom of his heart, but David didn't know what to say at all. I remember. I was more scared than my little girl. I've never been arrested before. At this time, David was also very distraught. First of all, he didn't know how to comfort others. In addition, he was also worried whether the police would discover what happened last night. Sean took his assistant Lau Hai to visit an aunt near the scene. At that time, she heard a sudden breaking sound, and then heard a girl saying hello to someone. But then there was a gunshot. The old lady was a little scared, and did not dare to open the curtains. From this, she concluded that Katie should know the murderer. Then they found two of Katie's friends. Now in this situation, they could only tell the truth that Katie's boyfriend's name was Brandon. They planned to elope together to Las Vegas today. The three of them were together last night, in the bar. Katie went to the bar with two friends. Brandon, the last time they met was last night. At about 8 o'clock, Katie went to the bar with two friends, Brandon came home and started packing because Katie's father, Jimmy, was particularly disgusted with Brandon's family. It was impossible for him to get along with Brandon, so they planned to run away from home together. They had agreed to meet in the supermarket this morning, but he didn't see Katie. Last night, Brandon came home before 9 o'clock. Mom can testify, but the assistant next to him, Lao Hai, still wants to take Brandon back to the police station for him to take a lie detector test. Everyone else has left. David's wife Celeste is still sitting at Jimmy's house. Even Jimmy thinks is a little strange. In fact, she wanted to tell Jimmy. Fortunately, David didn't say anything about his encounter with the robber last night. After returning home, she was still a little worried. Since David accidentally killed the robber, why has there been no relevant report until now? Celeste looked doubtful. David could clearly feel that his wife Celeste had begun to doubt him. At the police station the next day, Brandon successfully passed the polygraph. In fact, Sean had always felt that the child was not the murderer. In addition, Lao Hai also investigated that before the incident, David left the bar at 1 o'clock in the morning. Katie and two friends left 10 minutes earlier than him. They were very drunk at the time and climbed directly onto the bar to dance. There was nothing unusual about them. He also said that after leaving the bar, he went home directly. The journey from the bar to David's house was about 5 minutes, which meant that David returned home before 1:10 in the morning. This was the first time for Sean and the others to talk to David, but Lao Hai felt that David seems to have something he hasn't explained.